Hey guys, welcome back. A question I get all the time from artists is, should I start a label? And in my mind, the answer is actually default to no, unless. And that unless is one of two circumstances. The first one I think is a little bit easier to deal with for the average independent artist, and that is unless you want to build an infrastructure that supports other artists. Now think about it. If you're an indie artist and you're like, hey, should I start a label? You're not thinking about anybody else. I mean, let's be honest. You're thinking about, will this help me? Will this help my music? If you truly are thinking, yeah, I want to help other artists, there's others out there like me, and maybe I got some background, some knowledge. If that is you, then that could be a reason why you should start a label. I want to build an infrastructure to help other independent artists, and maybe I'm included in that group. That's fine. That's not the issue. But this is a threshold question. Should I? And if the answer is no, I don't want to help other people. Honestly, and I don't want to sign other artists and I don't want to help facilitate the growth of other people's music. If the answer is no to that, and it's not a yes to the next one, then the answer from a professional to you is don't start a label. It's a mistake. So here's the second one. The second one is, if you don't want to help others and you want to help yourself, you're doing it, you want to start a label for yourself. Let's be honest, that's cool. There's no problem with that. There's no problem to say, yeah, I want to start a label and it's for me. I want to promote myself. I want to create an infrastructure for myself. Should I? The next question you have to ask yourself, if it's a yes to that, it's for me, it's not for anyone else, it's for me, then the next question is, are you prepared to look at it as a business, as a startup, which will have ups and downs, which might fail, that requires an economic structure, that requires income streams, that requires accounting, bookkeeping, and legal issues, and all these different kinds of things, just like any other startup business? Are you willing to look at the label as a business that you are now responsible for? Because here's what it comes down to in terms of just the simplicity of it. I love to cook, and if you know me at different points in my life, you've seen my Instagram, and it's just like all these dishes I love to cook. Every ethnicity, every style, every different type of protein, everything. I love to cook. There's a period of time where even my close friends were like, man, you need to start a restaurant. And my answer to them was pretty simple. I have zero interest in running a restaurant. And the reason why, because cooking is not the same thing as managing staff, managing inventory, worrying about food spoilage, worrying about people complaining that they don't like your food and sending it back, like all that kind of stuff. That's a restaurant. Cooking, I could do that all day long. I could do that in my sleep. Are you an artist in your sleep? You're good at it. You love it. You live and breathe writing music, recording music, producing whatever. That's not the same skill set as starting a label. A label is a business. So if your answer is, man, I want a label, but when I think about it, if I got to treat it like a business and there's bookkeeping and I might even have to hire staff, and all of a sudden it's this thing that's taking my energy off of wanting to build my craft and perfect my craft of music, then starting a label is wrong for you. And that's just the harsh truth, right? And we'd love to think like, well, hey, that's inevitable because these days you kind of have to. Absolutely not. There's plenty of successful indie artists that do not have a label or do not have a publishing company. Sure, they might have a publishing designee with their PRO, or they might have an LLC because their accountant told them, hey, you need to run some income through this or whatever. That is not a label. That's not a publishing company. Just because you call it that doesn't make it that. If a true label, a true publishing company is a business that you treat as a business, that you have books and records and an address and you have a bank account separate from your own, and you have all the inner workings and external workings of an actual business that needs to make a profit. And if you're not ready to do that, if you're not ready to even view what you're doing as that, then no, don't start a label. It's that simple. Perfect your craft, get your music out there, build, kind of think of it as like the social media way, right? Like just like you start on Instagram yesterday, like you got your first follower today. Just build that and grow your audience and serve your audience and perfect the craft and the art that you're giving your audience. Then build the structures around it. And that's counterintuitive in a lot of ways, and it's also counter to what a lot of attorneys will tell you for a couple of reasons, and I think this is important for you to know. Attorneys by and large, they're professionals. They want to give you the best advice. But we all know a lot of times attorneys also care about their pocketbook. And so a lot of their advice is geared towards what will put more money in their pocket. So if you go to an attorney, hey, should I start a label? Their answer is yes, of course. We can form a corporation. We can, I can draft your bylaws. I can do, create all these contracts. And hey, we're going to need a contract between you and the corporation. And so next thing you know, there's $20,000 worth of work. And you're like, what do I do now? I got all this investment in this infrastructure. What do I do now? And that's the thing with attorneys and accountants, sometimes giving you that advice that is premature. It's not actually the best counsel for you. It's the best counsel for them, and it generically, sure, it protects you. And there's an argument to be made that, hey, Brock, what's wrong with setting up the infrastructure to protect me and my personal assets? Usually, in my experience, indie artists don't have a lot of assets to protect right out of the gate. And if you do, you've probably already talked to your financial advisors, your tax advisors, your legal advisors, and you may already have a trust or corporations. So it's a mixed bag of where you're at in even your personal finances in your personal life. But if you have the finances, why not? If you have the finances to create all the infrastructure you need, form a corporation, form an LLC, create contracts between you, the artist, literally a record deal between you, the artist, and your label. If you have the money, the funds to do that, why not? But I will tell you this, then you're responsible to administratively deal with all that. So if you also don't have the funds to hire somebody to handle bookkeeping and contracts and management, project management and all that, then even with that structure, which may be a great structure for future, doesn't make sense now. So I wanted to just get in and out on this one. Do you need a label? The default answer is no. Should you? If the answer is yes to one of these questions, yes, I want to help build an infrastructure to support and build others, and including myself or just others, that's fine too. Then yes, now let's go down the road of, there's a lot of other questions to ask in terms of should you start a label, but this is a threshold question for this video. But if you don't meet that criteria and you're like, hey, I'm not lying to anybody, this is about me promoting my music, then I've already kind of explained the reasons why you might want to consider, should I start a label? Treat it like a business. If you're ready and willing to do that, you have the resources to fund it, then yeah, you should start taking the next step and asking the next set of questions. But if the answer is no, stop right there. Switch your focus to, forget the label for now, forget the publishing company for now, focus on my craft, become a better songwriter, become a better artist, make better connections, do better on social media, get your music out there, build a fan base. Then you will start generating the reasons and the income to support that infrastructure that will make sense at some point. Because should every indie artist at some point have a label? Probably. And that's a much different question, but it's also a much better question at some point. So really what we circle back to is, when is the right time? I've given you what you need to chew on. In other videos, we'll go into how do you start a label? What does it require? What are the different moving parts? We'll get into the specifics, but for now, I think you're set. Should you start one? You already have your answers. Ask the questions I just walked you through, and I think you'll know. Thanks so much.